Welcome to another episode of Culinary School Stories, the weekly podcast that is dedicated to sharing the stories of people around the globe whose lives have been influenced, impacted, touched, and or enriched, for good or for bad, from their culinary school experience. Hi, my name is Colin Roach, and I'm your host. Thanks for joining us today. You are an important part of this show, where we ask the question, what's your culinary school story? So now, without any further delay, let's meet today's guest. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 3 of the Culinary School Stories podcast, a proud member of the Food Media Network. And if you have not yet subscribed to the show, please do so. It is free, and we would love to have you as part of our community. You can follow the show and subscribe for free through your favorite podcast app or through our website at www.culinaryschoolstories.com, which is also where we store all of the podcast's past episodes and our guests' bios and their contact information. So be sure to check it out. So now let's meet today's guest, who has a slightly different culinary school story to share with us today. John Michael Collins, thanks for being here with us today and sharing your culinary journey.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Great. So you attended and graduated from DC Central Kitchen's culinary job training program, which for over 30 years has helped men and women launch culinary careers. And I was reading on their website, their motto is, we care about our students' potential much more than their pasts. And they work to prepare adults facing high barriers to employment for careers in the food service industry. So before we talk about, your experience at the DC Central Kitchen and what brought you there, maybe you could talk about your past that led you up to this job training and where you are now.
My past is probably, not one that I share with many. But throughout my career, I've seen several that have had similar pasts. I actually found food by sheer accident. I had made a series of events that happened in my life that led me to make a lot of mistakes. And I ended up serving some time in Federal Lockup and found, food there. I got into a little bit of trouble and had to do some work in the kitchen and found I actually kind of liked it in there. And I stayed and I worked my way from the dish pit into prep cooking, into the bakery, into the line cooking, and just really kind of found that I really loved that style. And while I was there were culinary classes to take. That taught us the different way of cooking food, taught us about Serve Safe and got us Serve Safe certified, as well as baking classes. When it came time for me to actually leave, they found out that I was going to DC, and my baking instructor told me, when you get there, you need to look up DC Central Kitchen. They will help prepare you for a job. And, in this arena, this is what you really want to do, which I hope it is, because you're very talented.
Wow. So did you have any experience before you went to prison and started the food? I mean, did you have anything previous or no?
Yeah, watching my grandmother cook.
Oh.
That was basically my own experience, was watching, my grandparents raised me, from the age of 12, and just watching her cook. I mean, that was the only, and I loved her food. So it was the only real experience I had.
Did she let you help? Did you go in there and get your hands dirty and do some baking with her?
I helped make a mess is what I I got to lick the bowl for that, when we were making cakes but it was basically, she did all the work. I just kind of observed and made a mess, and she just loved having me around.
Right, right. Did you have a love of a certain cuisine growing up, or was it just more grandma's home style cooking?
Well, I mean, I was born and raised in San Diego. so I mean, there was a lot of Hispanic influence, and I spent a lot of time in Mexico and
Hmm.
Tijuana and stuff. So I mean, I kind of didn't really graduate to foods that have that type of flavor and have that type of flair. Even though now in my current setting, I'm learning all sorts of different cuisines, and things are just expounding. I am being introduced to foods, and when I say that, I mean like fruits and vegetables that I didn't even know existed on
Hmm.
this planet, let alone what they tasted like or what they look like or how to prepare them. And it's just been this wonderful journey with all these oohs and ah moments of learning stuff that's new and figuring out what food really is and how to connect food to people. And in turn, that connection just brings joy. It's amazing how I have found just preparing food for somebody and watching their face change as they experience not only just the smells and the look and the flavor, but just watch their spirit come alive. It's just amazing and brings so much joy to my life.
That's so great that you could, find food later on in life, and now you become your career and your passion, and that's great. What was your, um, what was your, career? What were you doing before you found food? Is there any interrelation between the two? I mean, were you artistic? How did that come about?
The whole thing is growing up, a lot of my friends were artistic. They could draw, they could paint, they could sing, they could play instruments. And I thought I had no artistic ability at all. Zero. My best drawing is a stick figure, and it doesn't even look like the right stick figure. I try to paint, and it looks just kind of like blah. Everything just kind of melts together. And I I didn't. I mean, I found that I really loved connecting with people,
Hmm.
and I connected with people in some very um, less than attractive ways, I guess you could say. Um, you know, there's that quote that's by I can't remember the quote. It doesn't matter. But it's like the kitchen is a last refuge for everybody, and people in the kitchen, we don't care about what's happened to you. What we care about is where you're going and what's going on with you right now. I have found such a sense of family in the kitchen that and I didn't think it would really be there. I mean, Ender Bodine was so correct in everything that he did and what he said about, the kitchen and the hospitality industry. And it makes me, my family is gone. I'm all by myself now. And I have the sense of, people who actually really care about me and they want to see me succeed and they want to see me do better. And everybody is so willing to help. All I need to do is just ask the question, what are you making? Explain that to me. Why are we doing this way? You know, um, right now we are getting ready to open a brand new restaurant in the hotel I'm at with a brand new concept. And it's something that not very many people get to experience it, nor get to be part of. And as a cook one, I mean, very few cook ones actually get to be an active role in this. And it's crazy that a few of my recipes are making it to the opening menu.
That's great.
And several of my recipes are on standby in case some of the recipes they picked to make it don't make it.
And that's at the Ritz Carlton.
Yes.
Great.
And we had the corporate chef come in and he was helping us with a photo shoot and everything. And we've been plating some shrimp sakanaki a certain way. And he changed the plating on it. And I looked at him and, I said, why are we plating it like this? And he gave me this weird look. And I think at first he thought I was challenging him as to why would you do it like this? And I looked at him, I said, I'm not trying to challenge you. It's just the fact that I'm learning plating right now. And I'm trying to learn how to do it better. And you're changing it. And so I'm trying to understand why you're changing it so that I can get better at this.
Sure.
And his whole face just changed. And he says, oh, well, let me explain it to you. In fact, sit here and let me show you how we're going to change some of these and why we're changing them. And it was like this moment of like, he was so happy that somebody was taking an interest and wanted to learn, because I think he's probably gotten so far away from that because being the corporate chef that it's just like, this is what we're going to do. And people just kind of follow underneath. Right. And nobody really goes, well, why? I want to learn.
Critical thinking. I need to learn. But it was interesting that you mentioned that you find a family, and that's the basis of this, industry we're in. It's hospitality. We open arms and we welcome our guests, but we also do the same with people that we work with. It's, as you mentioned, the past is the past, and everybody has problems and mistakes, but we're going forward, and it's the here and now, and what are we going to do to do what we can do best for our guests?
Right. And really that's all when I go into work, I try to put everything aside, and it's like, I'm here to serve the guests, and whatever the guests want, I'm going to do my best to give it to them. And if that means, sometimes we have servers that English is not their first language, and the guest, English is not their first language either. Right. And the guest is trying to explain to the server what they really want. And the server comes back and talks to me and explaining to me what the guests want. And I'm like looking at him going, that makes absolutely no sense at all. You can't even cook it that way. So let me go out and talk to the guests and let me figure it out what they really want. And I do so, and then and it's just and then I'll take the food out to them and just watch them. They're like, oh, this is exactly what I wanted, and I'm like, oh. I'm glad. I hope you enjoyed. If there's anything else I could do, just tell the server to come back and get me.
That's great. Now, I notice people that are listening the podcast, they're not going to be able to see this, but if they do watch it on YouTube, they will get the visual. But behind you, you have some food. Maybe you could explain what that picture is in your backdrop, and is that part of the new menu that you were just speaking about?
Actually, this is part of the old menu.
Okay.
We were doing more of a steakhouse at the time, and it is a hanger steak that is cooked rare and has some rosemary butter over the hanger steak, and it's accompanied with truffle fries and black garlic aioli. Our new concept is a Mediterranean concept, and it's a whole new learning curve for me. I'm having to learn a whole new palette of flavors.
Sure.
and seasoning that I didn't even, half the time I can't even pronounce what the seasoning is, but I'm getting the flavors down that, it's like, okay, that's what this tastes like. And how do I marry this together with something else to come up with this panache of a flavor that just explodes in your mouth, from the tongue all the way to the back of your throat, and giving you this sensation of, fireworks going off.
Yeah. Well, you can definitely hear the happiness and the passion in your voice and what you're going through as this, as a cook, and the all excitement that you're getting in this career and the food, and getting exposed to products and spices and food items that you've, maybe never seen before. So why don't we transition right into your training? I was looking on the website here about the DC Central Kitchen, and it's renowned. It's a career readiness and internships for adults, and they say it's a 14-week course offered at, that they train, they give you credentials, and that thanks to generous donations, all students receive full scholarships to attend the program. So there's no cost through the training, and they support them all the way through. So it sounds like an awesome program. Maybe you could tell again that Chef introduced you to it. How did you go through the application process? Was there interviews? How did you get involved? What was going through your mind when you first got accepted?
It was really crazy, because at first, even though I made it to DC, And I was in the halfway house in DC. I didn't want to be here. I wanted to be back home in California. And I kind of fought it for a few months. And finally, nothing was transpiring. And I said, to heck with it. This is where I'm supposed to be, obviously, because nothing's moving. I can't make it move. Let me look at this DC Central Kitchen that everybody is talked to me about. And I called them up, and, they told me I needed to come in and fill out some paperwork and everything. And I went in and I filled it out. And they went through an interview process where they reviewed my application. It was almost like a job, really.
Mm-hmm.
They asked me a lot of questions about my past and about where I was going and what brought me to food. And there was some questions about some stability. And at that point, I just decided I was going to do whatever it took to get in there. That, and the social, there was in my interview, it was the intake coordinator, Lachelle, and the social worker who's left there. And the social worker is the one who had some concerns. She wanted to make sure that if I started this, I was going to be able to finish it. And I told her, what do I need to prove to you? Just tell me what I need to do and I will do it. And she gave me a list of things that she wanted me to do, and I did them. And she told me I had like 2 or 3 weeks to get them done. I got them done in like 3 days.
What are some of the things she wanted you to do?
Well, she wanted me to make sure that I had a therapist.
Okay.
That because I was coming from being incarcerated for so long and into the public. And she wanted to make sure that I had a therapist in place, that as things came up, I had somebody to talk to.
Okay.
And that I would process these feelings coming through. And that was basically what she was really wanting out of me. And because she could see that there was probably going to be a little bit of bumps in the road down the way. And she wanted to make sure that I was going to be safe the whole way through.
Because they probably want to make sure people complete, right? And there's maybe limited spaces.
Right.
It's no cost, so there is money and resources involved.
Well, there is a cost. I mean, the cost is not to me. It's not to the student.
Right, but there's a cost to somebody.
But the cost is to that my class was sponsored by a couple. They were both retired. And they sponsored the whole class.
Wow.
They paid for the tuition for the whole class. And so if I don't complete, they still have to pay.
Right, yeah.
And the other thing is, there are other companies that sponsor, like Marriott sponsors a lot of classes and sponsors the whole class. And it's not just that they're sponsoring, paying for the instructors and paying for the food that we are preparing, learning how to prepare, and paying for our uniforms and paying for our books and paying for our certifications, because, we're certified in, in Serve Safe and Alitrain, and there's another certificate that we get. And I can't remember it off the top of my head.
But there's costs involved, right? There's this,
There's lots of different costs involved. And not only are they paying for that, but we're getting a stipend every week to make sure that we can get to and from class. They're giving us some cash so that we can actually, get on whatever means of transportation. Be it the bus, be it the train. If you have a car, that you have gas to put in your car, so that we can get to school every day.
So they're giving you all the tools and resources that you need to be successful.
Everything that we need, including knives. So it's just one of those things that they want to make sure that we're going to be successful all the way through.
So then you get in. What do? They send you a admissions letter, or what do they do? How do they let you know?
Well, we not so much an admissions letter. I mean, we're called and we're told that we were accepted, that Um, what part of the process that I'm not involved in, or the student is not involved in, is after they've gotten all these applicants, um, and everything, then they sit down as a group and they decide who's going to fit where.
Hmm.
Is this person ready? Do we need to have them wait? This person dropped out of the last class and we want to bring them back and they're ready now. So are we going to make room for them? And once all of that has been set in stone, then we're called and told what day to show up for class.
Is there a waiting list? Is people waiting to get in, or is it pretty much everyone gets in that wants to?
I think at times there is,
Mm-hmm.
but to be honest with you, that was not my experience.
Okay.
But I know that some people, their experience has been that they've been put on a waiting list, but that wasn't mine.
Okay. So now they tell you the day to show up, you go, and what do? You get your uniforms, you get knives, you get a tour. How does that
Well,
go?
the first day that we show up, it's just crazy. We're told how to we got to be in street clothes, and in fact, we're in street clothes for the first 2 weeks because the first week they're checking to make sure we're going to be there,
Mm-hmm.
and at the beginning of the second week, they actually take our sizes. Shoe size, jacket size, pants size, and everything. And then they order the uniforms.
Okay.
So by the second week, then we have our uniforms. But the first day, we've got all our books. They've given us every single book that we need, including nail clippers to make sure our nails stay the way they're supposed to stay. Files, pens, paper, and everything. And our first class that we go to is self-empowerment. And when I went to this class, my first thought was, what has this got to do with anything to do with cooking? This man is telling me I'm going to need to tell some of my deepest, darkest secrets to a room full of people that not only do I not know, I don't know if I care to know these people. And it's just one of those. I wear glasses, and I would look at him over the top of my glasses, and his name was Jeff Rustin, and he's still there to this day. And he's always so happy to see me or to hear from me and to hear the adventures I'm going through. But he always says, Mr. John Michael would look over his glasses at me like, "Oh, you got to be kidding! I am not telling you that."
So how did it end? Did he turn you around by the end of the class? Was it?
Oh, he turned me around. It went from that was my least favorite class to being the most empowering class that I learned that I did have power.
Wow.
And that people did not walk all over me. And it was okay for me to say no. And it was the trauma I went through as a child was okay. Not that it was okay I went through it,
Mm-hmm.
but it was okay because other people went through the same thing. Because when I started talking about mine,
Yeah.
other people started talking about theirs, and it bonded us together.
Oh.
Because now we had something that not only were we learning how to be a family, but we were bonding together. That I see these people all the time, all around the city, and they come up to me and tell me, "Hello, how are you?" I know they're kids,
Wow.
and their kids love me, and it's one of those things that was probably the most empowering thing I've ever done for myself.
Wow.
And I almost think that no matter what school you're going to, be it traditional or be it like one of these job training programs, it's a class you need because we need to just know that these things are okay, that they happened and they're part of our past. And and they don't have to be part of our future.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important because I believe we all have gone through some form of trauma somewhere in our life. And some of us have just been a lot better at hiding it than others. And it could just be a much better world if we learned how to face the trauma and move through it to make it part of our past and help us strengthen us to the future.
Sounds like a powerful class and a good one to start off with. It's needed to be started off, right? It gives you that, like you said, the bond, that family, that trust. You get to know each other and you're ready to go in and now have an open mind and start learning and put that baggage and stuff behind you.
Right. Because that baggage is what really kind of got me into federal lockup, was that baggage of me trying to fill that void with other things that I didn't get, and that I was afraid of. And that it helps propel me further. And I think that's why I've gone as far as I have, as quickly as I have. I mean, I've only really been, with the pandemic, I've really only been cooking in the industry for 2.5 years. And I started off as a cook 3, and I just got through applying for positions as a sous chef, and am in the middle of the interview process and tastings for those. So, I really believe it's because of that class. It's allowed me to go this far.
That's great. So how long were you in lockup, and how much of that time did you spend in the kitchen there getting experience?
I was in lockup for 7.5 years, and I was getting experience probably for maybe 7 years of that.
Wow. So you got a good foundation at least, right?
Yeah. I mean, literally I started off in the dish pit and, and cleaning dishes and scrubbing pots and pans and then moving into a server position and serving the food, and then moved back into bakery and working with them and prep cooking and learning how to cut and how to, and then finally getting my feet wet with cooking, and and moving around from one prison to another.
All right.
You kind of have to get your feet wet all over again in each kitchen, because each one of them is it's just, they don't know you.
They already have a hierarchy too, right? So you're not going to come in and
right. There's a hierarchy in there. And I have seen people get into that hierarchy that didn't know how to cook and will run out of the kitchen. It's one thing, it's like they always said, there's 2 things that you don't mess with prisoners. One is their TV and the other one's their food.
How is the food in prison? Can you share that with the listeners? Is it?
The food is actually, it's decent.
Yeah.
We're not given a whole lot to work with. So you really need to learn and develop a palate of flavor, because they'll give us whatever seasoning we want. But basically, it's fish on Friday, lasagna on Wednesday.
Right. Psycho menu.
It's a pretty standard menu. And and it's when we can, when we learn how to marry flavors together, because they'll give us whatever seasoning we ask for. And sometimes, and we get some really kind of strange things, because, there may be some train that goes around somewhere and there's a bunch of seasoning and a bunch of cooking stuff, and meat and everything on that train, and the government gets it at a very reduced price.
Wow.
And then they just kind of like filter it through the system. And so we got some really kind of unusual things that kind of floated through.
Now, can everyone eat whatever they want, or are they rationed how much you get, or do you have to like sneak an apple out the back door?
They do ration. They do figure out how much, it's like, this should be the portion size, and this is how many prisoners you're cooking for, and this is, what you're going to do. And so, I mean, I worked my way from like would have been a cook 4 there, and I worked my way up to a cook 2 position and / cook 1, because when I was at the very end of it, I was at a camp, and the camp was connected to a USP, which is a maximum security prison. And every time that prison would go on lockdown, the camp would come over and cook for the prisoners while they were locked in their cells. And I would go over as a cook 2 and run the kitchen.
Is that because the cooks that were in the kitchen were prisoners and they had to be in lockdown, so nobody could cook, so they had to bring in another crew to do the meal prep?
Right. They had to bring in a whole nother crew to help. And so I would, sometimes, because of the camp being the way that it was, we'd have people who didn't know how to cook. And so I'd go over there and have to show them how to cook very quickly and how to put things together. And then there was an officer's mess over there, and I would cook for all the officers. So we were cooking for over 1,500 inmates and over 300 guards.
Wow.
That I was cooking for daily.
Now, you said that they assigned you that job. Do you get to pick your jobs, like laundry, cooking? You have to do a job, right? And do you pick, or they assign you?
You've got to do a job, and they don't. The only job they really do assign is like, if you can't go in there and find a job, you're told to find a job. Like if you want to work in plumbing and you have plumbing experience, then you need to go apply for the plumbing department, go talk to the CO that's in charge. If you want to be in laundry, you need to go talk to the laundry people. If you want to be a clerk, you need to talk to, and you got to, but if you can't find a job and you're not excused from working because of some disability that you may have, you're put on yard work. That you're basically out there, you're sweeping the yard up, you're picking up trash, and, and everything. And so
what's the pecking order? Is kitchen pretty high up on the list? Does everybody want to get in the kitchen?
Kitchen is not high up on the list. Surprisingly, kitchen.
Do you think you'd have some perks in there? Do you have perks like the best food or more food? Or
you don't really have. You do get some perks. I mean, I was good with baking, and every yard that I went to, I was always considered the candy man because I could make candy out of nothing. Oh. I could make you some peanut butter cups that you would have sworn came right from Reese's, and they didn't. And it just the perks were, it's like I could get in the kitchen, I could bake cookies, and some of the COs would let me leave with cookies. Let me leave with cinnamon rolls, and I would take them out to the yard and I would sell them. And that was my hustle. Is selling all these sweets that you couldn't get in commissary, that you couldn't, normally get it, that would, and working in the kitchen gave me those perks to be able to do that. And actually, because I had no family, I mean, that was my only source of income.
Right.
Because they pay us so well. I mean, as a cook too, I made 17 cents an hour.
Woo. You get a lot of overtime?
Oh, there is no overtime.
No time and a half.
No time and a half. They figure, they're boarding you, they're feeding you, they're housing you, they're giving you medical care. All that is, 17 cents is what you're worth.
Now, why is the kitchen not high up? Is it just because people don't like cooking? Is it hard? They got to clean, or they just never don't exposed to it?
Well, I mean, it really is a hard job. I'm looked over like all the time. You go into some of these, a camp is much easier. It's much more open. But when you're in a low or a medium or a high security, you are locked in your room. If you're a butcher, you're locked in that butcher room, so that because you've got knives, and when that door opens, you have to check your knife before that door opens. It has to be secured and put away, and it can be your hours can be a little you don't have as much freedom because you're basically going from a locked cell into a locked cage. And it's just it's and you really need to. I found that I loved it, so it made it easier for me.
Right. Sure, I could see that now. Did they have to go through a certain security to work in the kitchen because of those knives? Or they have
no,
anybody can go in? It's because you're in there. It's so
you're in there and everything else. So it's just it's one of those things that and it's unusual because each part of the kitchen is controlled by a different group. You have all, and I don't even want to say because it's not really a gang, but it's you've got the air Aryan Brotherhood controls basically the cooking part of the kitchen.
Wow.
The dish room is normally controlled by the Hispanics. The bakery is normally controlled by Pacific Islanders. It's like each group has their own part that they kind of manage. And being a white gay male, I was at the bottom of that pecking order, and I had to be good to make it through. Wow. Each one of those groups learned how to respect me and how to admire what I could really bring to the table, because it was unheard of for somebody of my caliber to actually really be in the cooking part of it. I really had to prove I could be there, and that I should be there, and that I was trustworthy enough to be there.
So you didn't automatically get in because of a member of that group.
No,
you had to prove your worth to get into those positions.
I had to prove myself to that. And, it's crazy. It's like I've had some friends that I have maintained from some friendships since prison. And one of them is this one guy, and he calls me up occasionally. He's got he's got some friends that go through some troubles and everything. And he calls me up and he says, I've got another friend that's going through something. Can you help him out? Can you just talk to him and tell him what about your experience and how you did things? Because I think you can really help this person. And
that's because he's going into prison, and just kind of give him a roadmap of what to expect.
It wasn't so much that he's going, these people aren't in prison. They're just having hard times with life. And, I don't know what made me this beacon of a person that people want to come to and talk to, but it is what it is.
Well, that's good. I mean, that they seek you out, and that they value your opinion and your advice and guidance. So maybe it's part of that empowerment. Okay, at this halfway point in the show, I want to take a quick pause and tell you about an amazing opportunity from one of the industry leaders in culinary and hospitality online education. Whether you are an individual looking to get more training in the front or back of the house that is documented through assessment and certification, or are a small or large hospitality business owner looking to find an effective and legitimate educational training institution that will provide your employees quick, easy, and affordable operational training, well then, the Pineapple Academy is for you. The Pineapple Academy is the premier provider of online education in the areas of food service training that is designed for both front and back of the house frontline workers in the restaurant and hospitality industries. Their current curriculum includes a variety of topics to fulfill your personal training needs, such as knife skills, food safety, customer service, cleaning and sanitation, and so much more. And during this time where staffing is a concern for everyone, their training programs provide an easy and affordable way for hospitality businesses and individuals to manage and implement a high-class training program. And as someone who has taken several of their training courses, I can honestly say that they are always focusing on the needs of their customers and the industry, while constantly adding to their training library. They offer food service training solutions for individuals and businesses of any size in either an individual or a group training format, depending on your specific needs. Their training is designed to be fast, effective, and an easy way to get real-world, practical knowledge for yourself or your team. And it is the perfect tool to onboard new team members and standardize your training. And the best news is you can get started for as little as $9.99 a month with their personal plan, or $14.99 a month for their business plan. They also have custom options available for businesses as well. And you can try it for free before you buy, because today I am including a custom link just for you in the show notes and description section of this episode, which will give you a 14-day free trial. So, what do you have to lose? Go and check out the Pineapple Academy today. I have really enjoyed their courses, and I know you will too. Okay, so now back to the show. So why don't we go back to DC Kitchen now? So you got there, you got accepted, you first 2 weeks, you're getting measured for your uniforms, they gave you equipment. So what is your first, besides the empowerment and some of those type classes, what's your first lab class? What's your cooking class?
But our first lab class was let's see, our first book class was about the utensils, you know, what the knives were. This is a chef knife. This is a paring knife. This is, it was a lot of stuff I already knew and everything. And then when we actually got into the kitchen, the first thing that we were handed was a carrot. And we were told to dice it, not shown how to dice, but just told to dice it.
Wanted to see how you hold a knife, how you...
They wanted to see how you held the knife, how you took the carrot and would start breaking it down to, and how precise your cuts were. And the instructor would walk around and he would stop people and he would correct the way you held the knife. He would stop and correct the way that you stood. Because if you stand straight on, your cuts are not gonna be straight. But if you stand,
slouched,
adjacent to it, you're gonna have a cleaner knife. If you're standing straight up, and then he would, and it was just for 2 weeks. That's all we did is we cut potatoes and carrots.
Yeah, well, that's true in most culinary schools. They're going to start with those knife cuts, right? They're going to get all those vegetables out there, that mirepoix, and start chopping it and use those knife skills and learn the claw and all those type of typical things. Now, who are the instructors at the DC Central Kitchen? Are they chefs from the industry? Or are they culinary instructors that are there full time?
They're culinary instructors, and they've been in the industry. So they some of them have had actual like executive chef positions, and now they're giving back. Others have just worked their way through the industry. I remember Chef T, who has left DC Central Kitchen, loved him dearly. He always had a good ear and was always very kind. And he's gone on to a literacy course where he's working with adolescents and making sure, helping them, increase their literacy and increase the district's literacy on whole. And, it's amazing. There was Chef Dean and, he had gone through his own troubles and now he's off doing something, different. But Chef Dean is the thing that he taught me, and I hold to this day of knowing how to do is he taught me how to make hollandaise sauce. That was the first thing he taught me how to do. And I was good from the beginning. And I think I'd never done it before and didn't even realize what hollandaise sauce really was. I mean, I knew it went on asparagus and I knew it went on, poached eggs, but to actually make it from scratch and to learn what that flavor palette is supposed to taste like and how not to cook your egg.
Right. Don't make scrambled eggs.
Because you don't want scrambled eggs. You want a nice sauce.
That's great. Now, you progress, is there a final in there that you have to for each course, or is it at the end of the program that you have to complete something or do a practical?
There is a final. We're given, we go through all the different meat cuts, we go through eggs, we go through searing, we go through sauteing, making omelets. I mean, it's all the basics. And then at the end, and towards the end, I should say, there is a cook-off that we have, where they take the students and they break us up into groups of 4, or not 4. Let me back up. They break us up into 4 different groups, and depend upon how many students there are, is how many people are in the group. Our group just happened to have 4,
okay,
because our class had 16 people, and so we were in 4 groups of 4, and we have to come up with a name for ourselves, and we are given a dish to make, and our dish was pot pies. And so each group had a different protein. There was the chicken, the beef, there was a pork, and then vegetarian. And my team got vegetarian. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, how the hell am I going to make a vegetarian pot pie from scratch and get this thing to actually taste good? Because I'm like listening to all these other people and our team came together, and we broke everything off. And the judges that we have are cooks and chefs that are in the industry, and they came in and they judged not only just what we prepared, what it looked like and how it tasted, but how we presented it to each other. And they loved the presentation. And one of the guys he told me that he had been vegetarian for decades, and that he had just, gone back to starting to eat meat. And he said, I couldn't believe that I wasn't eating meat when I ate yours.
Wow. That's a compliment, huh?
He said the flavor and the punch was there. And it came out later that some of the other students thought I cheated, but I since I was trying this out, I went on to LinkedIn, and I had a lot of chefs that are on my LinkedIn account. And I said, this is what I'm doing. And do any of you have any ideas of how I can marry some vegetables together to get a nice flavor combination? And I had several chefs that came forward and said, have you thought of this? And have you thought of that? And and different vegetables I had never thought about using, like parsnips,
sure,
and rutabaga.
Caramelize them up, get some flavors.
And I took 3 of the different ideas that different chefs had given me, and I married them all together. And some of the other students said that I cheated. And when I explained to Chef T and Chef Will what I had done, they went back and said he didn't cheat because he didn't take a recipe from anybody. All he did was ask for ideas, and he took their ideas and he married them together.
Yeah.
And we've read all the emails that he got, and none of them have a recipe in it. All they did was give him ideas. And so he utilized his network to the best of his ability to come up with
being resourceful,
and that's all it was. Is he didn't take a recipe from anybody. He just took ideas.
That's great. No, that's just using the resources and network, like you said, just to try to get, ideas to add to your own and then make it your own. So that's, that's what every cook does.
Right.
There's nothing new being invented today. Everything's been invented before.
We're
just taking things and putting different things together and putting our own spin on them.
A different twist on it. Yeah. And that's all it is. It's a different twist. And we're maybe taking something that is at this level and we're elevating it to this higher level.
Right.
And that's all it is.
So that's good. Now, did you graduate? They give you a certificate and it's like a little graduation?
We did graduate. And at the end, we were a practical. And on that practical, we had to make a hollandaise sauce. I had to sear some meat to a medium rare. I had to do a vegetable, but everything we had to do completely from scratch. And we were given 1 hour to put it all together.
And what happens if you don't do well? You have to stay in the class and do it and keep taking it again, or you don't graduate, or?
You will not graduate if you cannot pass your practical.
Okay.
But they do everything in their power to make sure you're going to pass that practical. Because if you're having problems with hollandaise, they'll pair you up with somebody. I got paired up with several people to help them do their hollandaise and how to give them different little tricks that I had learned.
That's good. So it's not one thing that's going to prevent someone from moving on, but they do want to make sure that you have somewhat foundational before they put you out in the workforce.
Right. And towards the end, before that practical, we're put in a internship. And the internship normally lasts 3 weeks. And my internship ended up lasting 7 because I was interned at the Ritz-Carlton Pentagon City.
Wow.
And the executive chef really liked me. And he put me through my paces. He would throw so many different things at me. It was just crazy. And he was really trying to find a position for me and didn't want to let me go. And he found a position for me.
Okay. So what's next for you now? Now that you've got this behind you, you've got that foundational level, you're climbing the career ladder. Where do you see yourself for the next year, 5 years? What's the ultimate goal here?
I enjoy cooking. And even though I'm applying for sous chef positions, I am trying to make sure that I'm still going to stay cooking. I don't want to be stuck in an office doing a bunch of paperwork and doing a bunch of numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I really want to be out there and I really want to be cooking and I want to be creating. And, that's what I see myself doing is just really, I really love what I do.
So what would you like to do in the short term?
The short term, I'm learning as much as I can learn. And I'm learning a lot about Mediterranean flavor and different recipes and just really trying to kind of put my stamp on a few different things.
And you're going to stay in that Washington area, as you climb the sous chef ladder?
I do right now. I'm planning on staying here in this Washington area, but that doesn't mean that I'm not open to moving somewhere else. I had somebody that came in, a guest, and I went out and I spoke with him, and I cooked what he wanted me to cook, and he enjoyed it immensely. And a few weeks later, I got a message at work that somebody was trying to get a hold of me, and they wanted me to call them. And I called, and it was the general manager of a private club in Minnesota. And the gentleman I had cooked for was the president of the board of that private club.
Oh.
And he wanted me to come out and be the chef for their season. And their season only lasts for, I think it was like 12 weeks. And even though it was good pay and everything else, what am I going to do after 12 weeks? So there's 52 weeks in a year.
Right. And I know the Ritz-Carlton is great for transfers, right? You could transfer within the Marriott Ritz-Carlton properties.
Within the Marriott, and all the positions that I've applied for are within the Marriott brand. And I really love what Mr. Marriott has built and the philosophy behind a lot of it. It's just very positive.
So this DC Central Kitchen, this job training sounds really great. Would you refer someone to the program, and why? What would you tell someone about it?
I would refer somebody to it because it helped me so much just become such a better person overall, learning how to handle so many of these barriers that came up and how to rely upon some of my friends that I made there. It was just a very positive experience. And no matter what you do in life, some of the classes of, just the self-empowerment, the professionalism, I still to this day, I go back to the school.
Really?
And I work with the students and I help mentor them if they're having problems. In my class, I was the only white student. Everybody else was of color. And I go back and it seems to kind of be a thing that there's always one. And, I let them know it's going to be okay. I have donated knife sets to the students that they have to do some contest to actually win the knife set to show that, that this is what they really want. And I've spoken at graduation ceremonies.
Wow.
I really believe in the program and I believe in what they do. And it can help people. And it's one of those things that I tell people, life really kind of throws us some punches and it can really suck at times. But it doesn't mean that we need to get stuck. We can change and we can change our environment. And if you don't like what's happening, then do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Be the change that you want. And there are so many people out there willing to help. You just have to show that you're willing to work for it. And this is not easy. It never was easy. And it never will be easy. But it's very rewarding when you actually work and do the job.
It sounds like it's a great program. And if anyone is interested, I can put the link down below to the website. But it's dccentralkitchen.org, HTTPS. / So you can find it if you want to help. If someone's out there listening that wants to donate, they're always looking for donations and sponsorship, or if you're interested in, finding out more about the program or how you can help. And I believe there are many different cities now, right? There's not just in DC. They have some version of this in other places as well.
Yes. And they're trying to branch out a lot more. I mean, the way that DC Central Kitchen was first formed, and taking food from restaurants that would normally be thrown away and to repurpose it to help feed the homeless and the hungry. And I remember hearing it was being said that could never be done, and it was just, and here it has been done, and it's been done for over 30 years.
Mm.
And there's so much good that has come out of this, and they're trying to grow this across the country. And even though it may not be DC Central Kitchen that's involved, there are other kitchens that are taking DC Central Kitchen's platform and moving it forward. And there are so many good people that are involved with DC Central Kitchen, such as Jose Andreas.
Mm-hmm.
He has come in and has done so many things with DC Central Kitchen. And now that he has DC World Kitchen, and he uses that platform to feed people in all over the country and all over the world when disaster hits. And like when the pandemic hit, and people in this area were needing food because they weren't working.
Mm-hmm.
And he helped provide food for children, for men, for women, for everybody, so that nobody during that pandemic went hungry. If you went hungry, it's because you wanted to. It wasn't because there wasn't food out there for you to have, because there was.
Right.
And at least I can say that in my area, that we help feed everybody.
Yeah, it's a great service and a way to give back and community building. And if listeners out there, I'm sure find something in your area. There's some kind of community, some kind of food bank, some kind of helping with the shelters. Get involved and show hospitality any way that you can.
Right.
Well, as we come to the end of our chat today, before we wrap up, is there any last minute advice or guidance that you want to leave with the listeners? Something that, you want to share?
I have this motto that I've learned to live by, and that's never to hide anything of my past, because we're only as sick as our secrets. And I found that when I start sharing those things and start sharing my past, that I find ways to connect with people that I would have never had any other way. And when I don't hide the things in my past, and I've been honest about everything, nobody can come back and use that as a weapon against me anymore. And it gives you some freedom to move forward, and to move forward with your head held high, because we've all made mistakes, and we've all done things that we maybe not regret, but wish we would have done them differently. Because I don't regret any decision I've made. I don't regret anything I've ever done, because all of those experiences helped make me into the person I am today, the person that people come to and ask for advice. And I don't give advice. I only give suggestions, because it really ultimately is your decision if you're going to do what you're going to do. And I found people who give advice, if it goes right, they try to take credit for it. And it's really not their credit to take. And if it goes wrong, they blame it on you, because you must not have done what I said for you to do. But if I just give you suggestions and tell you, this is what worked for me, it might work for you, it might not work for you. But I'll be here to help you as you go through it and hold your hand while you do the work. Because really, that's the only way that you won't repeat things again, is if you do the work, not if somebody else does it.
So true. Great advice. Now, if someone wanted to reach out to you or wanted to ask you questions or something, or touch base, is there a way that they can reach you? You're on social media. What's the best way?
Well, I'm on Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn. And, I have no problem sharing my email address with people.
What we could do is I'll put it in the show notes with your bio, and I'll put the links, whatever you need, and the information there, the contact information. If there is someone listening that wants to, hear more about your story, someone wants to reach out for employment purposes, or someone wants to reach out and find out about, advice going forward or from your experiences, they'll be able to do that.
Wonderful.
Good. And I appreciate, you putting yourself out there, that someone that can ask questions to, that can come to, because, that's, as you mentioned, that's really what it is. It's really hospitality. It's a family. We help each other, and we all get through this life together.
Yeah, because if it weren't for people being there to help me, I wouldn't have gotten as far as I did. So why would I not be there to help somebody moving forward, in their life, in their career? Even if they're not even wanting to be in food, but there's just so many things that I've faced in life that I've done wrong, or I've done the wrong, shouldn't say wrong, because it kind of was right. It's because I learned a lesson from everything I do. There's a lesson in everything for us. A lot of times, as long as you just don't keep repeating the same mistake over and over again, then you're learning.
You grow, you change, you modify.
You're evolving.
Well, that is just about all the time we have for this episode. And I want to first thank you, John Michael, for coming on the show today and sharing your culinary school story with all of us. I really appreciate, the time that you spent here today, the insight that you shared with us, and your honesty, your vulnerability. Really appreciate it, and I can't thank you enough.
Not a problem. I enjoy being here. I enjoy, sharing my experience, strength, and hope with others, so that we can move forward and we hopefully can become a stronger community.
Great. Well, thanks again. I really enjoyed the chat. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
And a big thanks and appreciation also goes out to all of you, the listeners. We hope you enjoy the show and this episode. You all are a big part of this show, so please let us know what you think. Your comments are always welcome, and they help us in making the best show possible. You can email them to culinaryschoolstories@gmail.com. That's culinaryschoolstories@gmail.com. Or even leave us a voicemail at area code 207-835-1275. That's area code 207-835-1275. And if you like the show, we have a big ask of all of you, and that is to share the podcast with everyone you know and to give us a positive rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Okay, until our next Culinary School Story, take care and be well. Bye-bye. Culinary School Stories is a proud member of the Food Media Network.